Cedar Rapids. He said that he would definitely help us move into Iowa.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I told him I was going to give it to you.
Now, I don't think I sent you the stats, did I? You had unbundled stats where you can see the impact or lack thereof for Iowa, like, and others. I'll decide if we can do this or not.
Look, Iowa caucus is what we're going to try.
See how we look. We're looking at Iowa there. I'm in my channel in my mouth today. My dad and my binocular glasses.
I see you got gift. Now you put your hands up here, you definitely have channeled your mouth. You go right into Malcolm.
Like, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah. I don't want you to do this.
I already did it.
That was my favorite part of the whole movie. I was like,
So you don't know, maybe, I don't know if I ever told you this. So my dad, I'm not going to have pictures, but my dad was he was in the Black Chamber.
okay.
And so we go out at night, they do their thing, they try to keep the community safe. And come back home, sleep, go out the next night, they serve food, they do all kinds of stuff, of course.
You don't have to tell that story.
There's a whole lot of people in the Lark family that I tell people, they don't know,
They don't know all of them.
Lisa said the other day, she's like, I keep learning stuff about you every time we go somewhere. I know. But yeah, he was. And then the other thing he did with General Motors, he was trying to force them to not make it mandatory for people to pay you because they wanted to do that. In his day and age, you come in, they took their money out no matter what.
Yeah.
Black people weren't making a lot of money anyway. So
I remember
what felt like a little bit of money for some people, like, you should have a choice. Kind of reminds me of the days with the pro-life stuff going on.
Yeah.
Right, to take the choice away. Yeah, he was a busy guy.
You know, it was really funny too because somebody said this morning, I think I was watching CNN and they were saying it amazes me how they want to dictate that marriage is a choice between a man and a woman, but we want to tell that it takes 60 men to decide that a woman's choice is no longer hers. And people don't even look at it, they don't even realize how significant this statement is, the choice statement, or the control over women.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Well, it's not just, it's both sides. So I don't get too excited one way or the other. I figure it's going to work out one way or the other.
Yeah.
Because, at the end of the day, those people that can't get something in one place will figure it out to go some other place. It's not fair.
Well, and you are going to have some that are going to go back to the days and back out of abortions and, watch abortions and people dying. It's going to happen, but it's happening today anyway because everybody can't afford an abortion.
Right.
And then,
Well, it all gets down to if you want to live in a free society and everybody has self-determination, which is what you hear, and then every time there are changes in administrations, we roll back things to things that happened when I was 10 years old.
Yeah.
Right. Things that happened when I was 20 years old. Things that happened when I was not here. Yeah. Every time we get it, we take a little bit of a piece back to try to take us back to the time that just wasn't good for poor people, which would have been mostly black, immigrants, etc., and all those folks that live in the country. So, yeah, that's an interesting time. Oh, did I turn mine on? Is mine on already?
Yeah.
Leo's mine on.
Your what?
Mike, is it on? I didn't hear Mike. Okay.
I already did a mic test.
Okay, so I'm good.
Trying to make sure Ken's.
Absolutely. You got to make sure mine is.
Yeah, well, you're going to come no matter what. You're coming to mine.
Right.
So yeah, there's a lot of history in the Lark family. I just bring it out at the right time. So it's coming. It's coming. Yeah, it was tough. It was an interesting time.
So today we're basically, I'm really going to put a lot of it in your hands to talk about just what's going on in America.
Okay.
And how
I'll read it all together. I'll read it all back to this. I think that's the real problem.
today's an election day.
Oh, God.
And he called it the power
Power curve.
curve.
more we mobilize, the more impact we'll have exponentially.
I gotta remember that one, so I can say.
Power curve, baby.
Talk to me about the power. Power curve.
You know, I gotta come up with something new. I
know
can't
it,
just have the same
but-
spiel. But I'm trying to simplify so people understand exponential power comes from.
You know, that was so huge. That's been on my mind ever since you said this one, because it's absolutely huge. We mobilize for registration. We register, well, we get record number of registrations, and then
We don't execute.
nobody goes to the phone.
Yeah, we don't execute. No matter the strike, so.
Let's just wait till the big turn on.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll take like a minute.
Yeah, no problem. Because you got it down here and just look at your phone anymore.
No, you know what? I don't even write notes anymore because pretty much so my show should be just about let's just talk. Let's just talk about something. Quest, I mean.
I'm not sure how you bring me in behind Congressman Cleaver. What the heck, man?
I had to give him what I could give him. I'm gonna have him on again though, after this week, and the vote comes through, and I might have him on again. Might be this one.
Yeah, a little bit. I'll be sweating by the time this is done.
Oh, tell me about it. We were here last week, or Quest and I were when we were talking. I was like, yeah, that's cool.
You ready?
Okay, I'm ready. Okay, you gotta let me know. See, this is
Yeah,
why we
yeah,
want
we
me
are.
here. Cause see, me and you just.
Yeah, what's
let me look
showing,
at
what's
my-
not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do I look fat? No.
You look great.
Killing me.
Yeah, whatever the,
Alright, ready? 3, 2, 1, go.
Hello, Kansas City, and welcome back to another episode of Speak Up. Today is the day that I've been waiting on. I promised you that I would bring you back on, and this is a perfect time to do that. This is an election day. There's a lot going on in America with all the situations, and you know, we're talking about small business and businesses in America, and where we are failing or where we are really succeeding. All of this we're going to talk about today, and I want you to take a moment to welcome back to Speak Up, Mr. Vercie Lark. He is our Regional Administrator for Region 7 for the SBA. Vercie, thank you again for coming back and spending time with me. This is perfect. This is a perfect day to do that, especially talking about the election coming up and then everything that's going on in America. How do you see that affecting us as small businesses?
Yeah, first, thanks for having me back. I figured if with the reviews of the last one, I might not get back to come to your
whatever.
show.
I got good reviews from that one. Everybody was, and they're still liking it.
Awesome,
So, yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
So I'm glad to be here, and so it's pretty simple to me. We live in a society that's built on democracy and capitalism. And so for things to move, for things to change, you've got to participate in both. And so if you're not participating in the democratic process, elections, right? If you're not exercising your vote, then how in the world would you expect politicians to pay attention to you? Because ultimately they need your vote to be elected into office. So that's that fundamentally, if we're not participating fully, we're gonna always be on the end of the short stick, I call it. You know, when I think about voting, voting leads to our personal lives, what we do in our bedrooms, what we do in our businesses, what we do when we're on the streets. It touches everything. And then money allows us to actually transact and get things done and live a decent life in a capitalistic based society. And I love capitalism. I think it's the right answer for what ails America. But we gotta vote. I mean, if you don't vote, you can't influence the policies and legislation that leads to more equity when it comes to getting things in your community. And so I'm here to talk about equity, but also from a business perspective.
So, you know, and you say if you don't vote, that's a big issue because we rally up and we have great registration turnout, and then we have very low numbers. So you kind of talk to me a little bit about the power curve and what that means. Can you talk to us about it? Can you tell the listeners more about that?
Sure. Happy to. So In case you didn't remember my background, I'm an engineer by trade.
Okay.
And what that means is I like math. And so when I think about the power curve, it's about how do we really multiply our individual voices, our individual earning power, our individual wealth. And the way you do that is you actually mobilize resources. As you said, when we have, George Floyd's a great example, we mobilize millions and millions of people, not just in America, but around the world. And we had donations flow in all around the world to move forward a social justice agenda. And I would argue that that's a good thing to do, but what next?
Yeah.
And so for me, the power curve is we know how to mobilize when we find an issue, whether it be we need to mobilize our money to help pay for a funeral because people don't have money to cover funeral costs when someone dies in our community. We can figure out how to do that. How about we mobilize, so we use our power, the ability to mobilize our resources to impact our personal lives, the wealth we have, the money we make, the media we influence, and quite frankly, most importantly, our vote. We've got to execute. And so money without execution, media without proper execution, mobilizing without proper execution leads to where we are. I'm 60 years old almost, and I look back to the time I was born to the time I am now, and I go back to my old town of Dayton, Ohio. It's worse than it was when I was a youngster growing up.
Yeah.
So we've got to mobilize, and the power curve says, how do we take what we have, collectively bring it together to create a much more powerful outcome to influence elections, to influence our wealth, to influence our neighborhoods, to influence policies. That's what the power curve is all about. Get on that exponential curve to really accelerate what we want to do, but it requires us to join forces like we would in a crisis, like we would when there's a war, like we would when there's a hurricane or a tornado. We come together as Americans and we take care of business. We can do that when there's not a crisis. The more we do that, the more our environment's going to change.
Absolutely. So,
And I'm a little preachy here, sorry.
I'm loving it because honestly, this is something that really needs to be reiterated every day, especially in the Black community. I look at the last election that we had before this one, and because it was local,
Yes.
I'm expecting people to understand the importance of your local elections over your national elections. We have kind of flipped the script. And I look at in the Black community, only 7% of the registered Black voters showed up to the polls. And so if we're having city issues and state issues and education issues and healthcare issues in our community, it starts with our local officials. It does not start with the White House or even the Senate or Congress. It starts here, and that's where your priorities should be. So how do we get people to remember when we were kids? Because I remember when I was a kid, elections were important in my household. And so every adult in my household, and there would be lines of people, because my mom would drag us to vote with her, like I could vote, but she wanted us to see. And there were always long lines of voters. And I remember our communities were much more vibrant.
Absolutely.
Our schools were filled with good teachers, good programs. We had, our streets were paved. I mean, there was trash, well, we burned trash back in the day, but there was the system worked because we were electing people that had our best interests. So how do we get that across to?
Yeah. So it's pretty simple. So again, my business background, I always want to think big, but then I have to act small, right? So think about where you want to be, think about your dreams and your aspirations, but then say, what's the next best step to take? And in most cases, the next best step is to act local. Just like we want to buy local, we should act local, we should vote local. The decisions that come out of Washington, that money is distributed to the states, to the cities, to the counties, to the municipalities. And then they make decisions about the allocation of those resources. And so if we're not voting at the local level and others are, guess who's going to get the resources that are allocated from the federal government? We aren't. I'll give you an easy example. So I was in Wichita just last week meeting with the Heartland Black Chamber of Commerce. It was a great event. And Lieutenant Governor shows up and he talked about the need to get certified and get into the contracting space for federal, local, state, county situations. And he put his picture up, he said, this is what I think we need to change. In the state of Kansas, there were roughly 250, I'm rounding, Black-owned small businesses registered across the state. And then when you move down into restaurants and all those things that the state government requires, he looked at us and he said, look, I understand it's hard to work with the government. I understand it's complicated. But if you're not registered or certified to work with us, when we decide resource allocations,
Yes.
if you're only less than 1% certified, then we're gonna look to allocate resources in other communities.
Yes.
And so our vote matters, our participation matters, and that's how we change the game. Think big, but let's act local. Do everything local. I visit local businesses, I eat at them, and you know this, I
Yes.
visit them often,
Yes.
and when I eat them, I tweet, I do whatever I can to promote those local businesses, because when they are thriving, politicians will pay attention.
Right.
Because where the money goes is where they go. It's a fact. This is a capitalistic society, which is a great society. Politicians need money to get elected. They're going to go where the money is. And the more we act local, the more they're going to show up in your small town and in your small community and on the street that you care about, and they're going to see the disrepair and they're going to feel it and they're going to act.
That's so amazing. You know, I'm glad that you said it, and to say it in that manner makes a whole lot of sense. When you look at percentages and numbers, so if only 1% of this community is registered and certified, then I can drop a couple of coins here,
Absolutely.
and I can move over here where there
Absolutely.
is money being made, revenues being made. Wow, that's perfect. I mean, I want you all to listen to this very, very carefully, because we are in a position now that we can really
Absolutely.
thrive in our communities and in our businesses if we pay attention to the politics. And if we pay attention to, and those are two things you and I have talked about, is
Absolutely.
politics and capitalism.
Money and politics.
Money and politics. We have to know the flow of money.
Absolutely.
And the thing that is really weird or wild is that we are the biggest spenders. We're the biggest consumers in America. And even if you count abroad, because we buy so much designer and Italian
Yes.
and
Yes.
European designs, we're bigger spenders even
Absolutely.
in Europe. So if we have the mindsets to be consumers, how do we shift that mindset
I got you.
to become more investors than
Yeah.
consumers?
You got it. So before I answer that question, I'm going to we have a golden opportunity in front of us.
Okay.
And I can't leave without making this clear. So there's been a legislation enacted, the Biden-Harris administration in particular, enacted to advance equity in rural and underserved communities. And then behind that, there's efforts going on in the SBA to do the same thing. So we're starting to unbundle the metrics we see and the successes we talk about to really get down to where are the areas that need help. And it's been evident anecdotally, now the facts are starting to come out. And we know we've got work to do in the Black community, the Asian community, the Hispanic community, et cetera, to start to bring more people into the system so that they have the opportunity to actually participate. So that's important. So this equity play through the Biden administration, through the Administrator Guzman, it's setting the table for us. Then there's this infrastructure bill, $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill. In this area, Kansas, Iowa, Nebraska, and Missouri, which I'm accountable for, about $4.9 billion are going to be awarded, but it's going to be awarded at the state, the county, the city level. And so if we aren't registered and to actually participate, guess what? Someone else is going to get the pie. We need to get registered and then get competent. The other thing that we have to do is partner. And so now you're talking about investment. We don't invest in each other. We don't invest in ourselves.
Wow.
I'll be blunt,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So before I took this role in the administration, I've been on a mission, you know this, to invest in small businesses in and around the United States, partnering with people that I've never met before to make that happen. When I look to our community and say, hey, do you want to invest? They say, well, Vercie, yeah, we want to do it. But then when it comes time to put the money in, they back away from the table. So I'm getting money into investments for all the things I'm doing from outside our community.
Yes.
That makes no sense.
Yeah.
There's no trust amongst us, and that goes back history. We were treated differently than anyone else that come here to distrust each other. Where you had people in the slave house, people in the outhouse, all the people in the field, they were created and put in an environment where there's a lot of distrust built. We haven't gotten over that, but we need to. So to your point about what do we need to do? We need to invest in ourselves.
Yes.
The fact that we are looking for, the government can't solve all these problems on its own. I always say, we say God helps those who helps themselves. And so we've got to actually participate in the system, but we also got to say that's not the only solution to our problem. That's a piece of the solution. We've got to figure out how to trust each other, or put in conditions so we can actually work together. Another stat I picked up here recently. 4 out of 5 white-owned businesses have partners.
Yes.
Guess what? 2, maybe 1 out of 5 black-owned businesses have partners. And the same for Hispanic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what happens in other communities is they come together and they pool their resources more than we do. So some people still buy high-end things and high-end clothes, but with the money we spend as a black community, we could own our own country.
Yes.
We're talking $1 trillion. There are countries that don't have this kind of money in their flowing through their communities. And so if we simply decide, you know what, instead of me going to Walmart, I'm gonna pay a little bit more for that corner store to actually get some product from them. And oh, by the way, when they're ready to expand, I'm going to invest a little bit so they can expand on the street they are in. That's how we build our communities. That's how we bring the taxes up in our communities. That's how we bring the votes and the legislation change in our community. It all starts with the money. And so we've got to be willing to, even though we don't trust, I don't trust everybody.
Right.
I use the phrase trust but verify. Right? I'll engage with you from a business deal, but I'll make sure I've got paper to back it up and a process to monitor what you're doing. It's very simple. And you should do the same thing whether you're giving it to your friend, or to your mother, or to someone you don't know, right? Trust but verify. So put systems in place, and when somebody's not operating properly, work with them, right? And that's what happens in other communities. We've got to take care of our own. I used this phrase. I was at the Prospect Business Association a few weeks ago, and I said, at the end of the day, we've got to do for ourselves what others will never do for us.
Absolutely.
Period. And so the government is an agency that will help. But private industry is the other agency that will help. I'm sorry, I'm talking way too long. No, it takes both. It takes 2 to tango, right? Yes. Public funds, private funds, I take them all. Because bringing them together gives me more leverage, more power. And when I bring the community funds with those, guess what? We've got exponential power to change what we do, what we live, where we live, how we deal with people, how we deal with the world. And quite frankly, people are going to take us more seriously.
Right. Now, I don't want you to think that you've taken up too much time talking, because people are viewing this to hear from you. They don't want to hear from me. They don't know me.
And so maybe, can I give a little background just because, and maybe that'll help for people that don't know me validate some things. I come from Dayton, Ohio. I'm not a Kansas City native. I'm not from this particular area, but I'm a Midwesterner. My dad worked at General Motors, and as he worked at General Motors, he was an activist. And so while I'm not my dad, he was a more vocal activist to me. I'm doing my work behind the scenes, and I have been for many, many years. This is the first time I've been in a public spotlight doing this kind of work. And I want to make sure everybody knows there's opportunity, but you've got to be willing to get prepared, get in the game, learn how to play the game. It's kind of like playing basketball, right? If I go to the basketball game with a football, I'm not going to have a good day.
That's right.
You got to bring the right tools and prepare yourself so you can succeed. And there are doors that are being opened because of this administration. We don't hear about those doors, but I know because I'm on the inside now, I see those doors. Contracting is just one. Yeah. There's equity and lending that's going on that can improve how you get small business loans, how you get grants and all that kind of stuff. That's happening. But again, if we are not engaged, it's going to go to other communities. And that's the key.
Correct. And that also goes back to, I have been on this bandwagon of collaboration.
Yes.
When I took over the chamber, and you and I've had long conversations over and over again about the need and the benefits of collaboration. So we have all these organizations in the city, and everybody's doing good work, but we are so afraid of coming together under an umbrella of one, and knowing that each one of us has something to bring, and that the work is so big.
Right.
We always, I'm gonna always use my Bible quotes. The Bible says the work is plenty, but the laborers are few. One of the reasons our laborers are few is because we silo.
Right.
So we're not being able to touch the work. So even in our organizations, that partnership and that joint venture partnership is very important to our community and how it grows. So if you and I are close to the same age, and I know you remember when our parents or our leaders in our communities would come together.
Absolutely.
And if there was an issue or an ideal, they
Absolutely.
rallied around it to make
Absolutely.
sure that it happened. We have a group of young people now, and I think they all have good intentions of rallying around, but because we're sitting on the outside kind of looking at, do you see what I see? I see a lot of young people with a lot of good ideas, and they're talking, but they're not collaborating. And eventually what happens is they become silos. Is that just me or?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'll make this comment to start, right? There's an old phrase that probably most people know, right? You want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go together.
Yeah.
And so we have a lot of good ideas, and ideas are a dime a dozen. It all gets down to execution and your ability to mobilize. Back to that no word, right? If you want to increase your influence and power, you got to be able to mobilize that. That means you got to work with others.
Yeah.
Even the people you might not like so well based on some position or some specific thing you're doing. There's plenty of opportunity, but we've got to come together as a team. Now, I'm a simple person. If we want to change the community, it should be based around money, social issues, and quite frankly, criminal justice falls in that social
Yes.
issue. Those are the two things that are going to move our community forward. All these other things about, I want to be an entrepreneur, great. Are you going to help somebody when you become an entrepreneur, or are you going to do it for yourself?
Wow.
So I'm in this because I'm trying to help people. I've always been in to help people. So if we can just get beyond it's got to be my organization. I got to lead this. We need followers. We need leaders. We need workers. And that's how any organization is formed. If you go back to whether it's the Hispanic community with Cesar Chavez, or with Black community with Martin Luther King, there was a leader.
Yes.
So in this community, everybody can't be a leader.
Right.
And so you got to say, you know what, my organization is important, but I'm going to plug into this other organization that's already breaking ground and making a difference and and play my part.
Yes.
For me, my entire career, I've always played I wasn't ever the CEO. I always played the CEO over the next person down because somebody's got to actually get the work done. Yeah. And that's what I focus on. And that's what I'm doing here. So we got to kind of put our egos aside and understand that the greater good, the greater benefit is going to come when we actually partner and not just talk about partnering and have nice Facebook chats and all these master classes and all that kind of stuff, because ultimately it's not about that. It's about get down. And again, if you don't trust someone, work an agreement where you can trust but verify. And if things aren't going well, at least you've given them a shot. And that's the key.
Yes. Yes.
So I don't think I think it's normal for people to think of ideas and decide to go do things.
Yeah.
But once those folks that have been successful see that, they should be reaching out and saying, how do I bring you in to help you accelerate what you're doing, and you can help me accelerate what I'm doing. That's what business is all about. That's what we partner for. The same thing on social issues and all the other things that we think we want to have fixed in our society. When you see someone with a good idea, invest in it.
Yeah.
When they're making traction with that good idea, invest in it.
Yeah.
It's all, and that's time, that's money, that's media, all those things I just talked about. Bring those things to bear so we amplify each other's desires and aims.
So you mentioned briefly criminal.
I'm preaching a little bit. My grandfather's a preacher, just so you guys know, and my brother is. So every now and then I get to be the hands flow.
If I throw an amen in there, don't worry about it. It's a good sermon going on. So you brought up or briefly mentioned criminal justice,
Yes.
and that is really very near and dear to my heart. But also the fact that that is really a hot topic in America right now.
Yes.
Criminal justice and reform.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that we have gotten away over the last 30 years of rehabilitation and allowing people to live their lives from a past,
Yes.
that now we're in a situation where people can't find housing, they can't find jobs, they can't get health care. We got people coming out of prison that have been prescribed medications, and then they get out and they have no way to get the medication. So we have this whole criminal justice issue. And but I'm gonna go back to the small business, because this is one of the things that we've been trying to work on, is letting people know when they come out of prison that you may not be able to find a job, but you can create a job.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that I want to clarify, can a felon get an SBA loan?
Yeah, so I'll tell you what I know. I'm not gonna tell you what I don't know.
Okay.
So the SBA has micro lending that's available, and you can, and after you've served your time, and you've gone through some period of probation as quote unquote outside and you've kind of kept your record clean, there is the opportunity now to get a microloan. And what a microloan is a loan that is somewhere between $500 and $50,000. So with a microloan, you can start a lawn care service, you can start a construction company, you can start all kinds of businesses to actually work within your community and then employ somebody that's, in my view, employ another person that was formerly incarcerated. And so if we can get that awareness out that says there is opportunity to bring capital to people that come out that were formerly incarcerated to help them start a business. And when they do that, they're going to be more apt to employ someone that was formerly incarcerated than maybe someone who isn't. So we can create a virtuous cycle through that simple vehicle for those folks that truly want to get a skill, start a business, and then, again, help their community. So it's available. As you move further up the stack now, outside of microloans, those loans are provided through commercial banks.
Okay.
And so those policies about what they will do is decided by the underwriters in a commercial bank. And that's why I focus when somebody talks about underserved and the returning citizens, I focus on microloans because the majority of people, if you're going to, matter of fact, I know for a fact, if you're just going to start a restaurant and the restaurant, you're going to a place that's already got the facility, you don't need hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
You just need tables, chairs, and a menu and people to work, right? So how could you do that and then employ those folks to give them skills and then you can actually franchise your restaurant. So think bigger, start small. Right.
Think bigger, start small.
So the opportunity is there. And again, that's because of changes, small changes that people don't hear about because we're talking about all these other things at the macro level across our country. There are very specific things that the administration has done with Administrator Guzman in particular to make a way where there wasn't a way before.
Right. So I want to talk about real quickly because we started out and one of the things was about mobilizing and voting. And voting today to me is really, really important. And just letting people understand how even your vote affects the SBA.
Oh yeah. So at the end of the day, we live in a democracy. And that means power comes from those who vote and power goes to those who vote. And power leaves those who don't. It's very simple. Yeah. So every decision, whether it's the SBA, housing for HUD, the USDA, every agency, what happens in the military, it all gets back to who you elect. And if you don't vote, you're just kind of hoping that someone comes in that has a kind enough heart to do something to help you. They're not going to deploy a lot more resources. They may give you a crumb. They may give you a few things to make you vote again, but they're not going to give you much because your community is not voting and voicing their opinions in a strong enough and a more forceful way. And so the vote touches everything. From the streets we have, from the businesses we own, it touches everything. And so if we don't vote for those folks that have our interest at heart and then hold them accountable, trust but verify, and when they're in there, if they don't do it, kick them out and find someone else who really cares and going to make a difference. It's a shame that after 60 years, communities that were underserved and poverty is almost the same as it was when I was born, roughly 15 to 20%. So that tells me we're voting for the wrong people, or we're not holding them accountable.
That's right.
And so your vote matters because it affects everything, every aspect of your life because policies and legislation dictate what businesses get open, which ones get funded, how the streets get, everything. It's everything. And so I keep saying and so, which is a bad thing to do, but I'm gonna do this and look right to the camera. If you don't vote, you really have no right to complain about the future of America today and the future it's headed because you're not participating. It would be like me saying, hey Kim, I want to complain because you know what, you're not cutting your lawn. And Kim will go, well, you can come cut it. Well, go cut it. Go help Kim cut that lawn. Do something. Don't just sit on the sideline and kind of throw things at the wall. Nothing changes by just throwing ideas at the wall. You got to vote. And if you don't vote, shame on you.
Shame on you. So, you said something that really struck me. Power comes to those who vote.
Absolutely.
Power leaves those who don't.
Vote.
So when we look at our community, and I'm going to say this again, 7% showed up at the poll. Now, I've known and I've been and participated in many voter registration rallies. I've seen people come and sign up, and I mean by the tons of people, the trolls of people, just lines and lines and lines. And then when it's time for us to vote, nobody shows up. And I hear people in grocery stores and barbershops, in beauty shops complaining about our elected officials. But then these same elected officials get back in office because the same people that vote go.
That's right.
And so they hold the power. If we want to change things in our community, if we want to be a part of this society, if we want to be included, we have to include ourselves. We have to invest in ourselves. Showing up at the poll is an investment in your household, in your job, in your community, for your neighbor, for the schools, and your health care. Showing up is the first step. And then after we show up, it's not just about now what, it's about the then next.
That's right.
Then next, we hold them accountable. And when holding them accountable is not just going down to City Hall, standing on the step with a sign.
Yes.
It is going back to the poll and saying, you didn't help us, you didn't do what you said you were gonna do, so now we're gonna find somebody else. That's how our voices get heard. We don't give up when it doesn't work the first time.
Yes, you gotta play the game.
You gotta play the game.
Yeah.
Vercie, this has been an amazing show. I know our time just goes by like that. Again, people, you know he'll be back.
I hope I shared something that was useful.
Oh my God.
And I also hope, if you have questions, I would like to just say, if you are looking for a business loan or looking to figure out how to get into government contracting, contact the SBA. There's local districts, local regions, there are people here to help. And so please don't give up. Get in the game. That's how you win. I've been playing the game for now roughly 40 years. It works if you get in the game, but you gotta be persistent and you gotta stay in the game. So please, work with your local SBA offices.
Absolutely. So, you know, I always have a shameless plug. The Heartland Black Chamber is going to start their Work It Out Wednesday. And we're going to start at Soiree on 18th and Vine. It's a lunch and learn. We'll be at Soiree the second and fourth Wednesday of every month. And it's called Work It Out Wednesday. Lunches will not be bought by me. They range between $13 and $15. But what you're going to get, you'll get visitors like Vercie Lark and many other people that you can talk to on how to work it out in your business, how to work it out in your community. Join us every second and fourth Wednesday. I want to take this time to thank Televita for always giving me this platform for free, public, and to be able to speak clearly, unapologetically, and to bring you good information. It's not about just talking, but it is about how do we rebuild our village? How do we become who we were and who we want to be? This has been a great episode. Again, thank you, Televita. Thank you, Vercie. Thank you. I appreciate you. Look for Vercie at one of our Work It Out Wednesdays. And I'm glad to see you again. See you next week. Have a good week. Be blessed, be kind, and do something nice for someone.
Go vote today.
Go vote.
All right.
Cut.
Thank you. That was great information. Great. Oh my goodness. I don't know so much. I was like, okay, what am I going to say?